Good morning, students. Today we are discussing the relevant theory of dividend policy. In the previous lecture, we have discussed about irrelevant approaches of dividend policy, where we have discussed residual approach and approach of dividend policy. In that theories, we know that there is a no impact of dividend payout ratio or retention ratio on the value of the firm. But here in the relevant theories, there is an impact of dividend payout ratio and retention ratio on the value of the firm. So, how they will impact it, we will discuss in the two approaches. One is known as Walter approach, another is called Gordon approach. This is basically the overview of that relevant approach. So, we'll discuss what is a relevant theory. So, if the choice of a dividend policy affect the value of the firm, it is considered as relevant because when we are paying a dividend, how they will impact the value of the firm. So it is a relevant, it is a related relation between a dividend and you can say the value of the firm. In that case, a change in the dividend payout ratio will be followed by the change in the market value of the firm. If the dividend is relevant, there must be an optimum payout ratio. Optimum payout ratio is the ratio which gives highest market value per share. So, under the relevant approach, we will discuss the first approach that is called Walter model or Walter's approach. So, what is the Walter's approach? Basically, how it will impact the market value. The dividend policy given by the James Walter considered that dividend are relevant and they do not affect the share price. Do affect the share price. The model is simple and easy to compute. Two factors which influence the market price of the share are EPS and DPS. We have already discussed about EPS. EPS is basically earning per share that we have discussed in the capital structure. EPS is basically calculated as earnings available to equity shareholder divided by number of equity shares. Dividend per share is basically a total dividend amount that should be divided by number of equity shares. That is dividend per share. Or dividend payout ratio is basically a percentage of dividend out of earnings available to equity shareholder. That is EPS. So we'll discuss further Walter's model. In this model, he studied the relationship between the internal rate of return, that is R, and the cost of capital of the firm. Cost of capital is basically stands for where we are giving a return to the investors of the company. So we'll study again. In this model, he studied the relationship between internal rate of return, that is R, and the cost of capital of the firm, that is K, to give a dividend policy that maximize the shareholders' wealth. When R is greater than KE, the firm has to adopt zero payout ratio. In the second point, R is lesser than KE, that is capitalization rate of equity, the firm has to adopt 100% payout ratio. If R is equal to KE, any policy in between 0 to 100% payout ratio can be adopted by the firm. So basically these are the three major points we have to focus on. If R is greater than KE, 0 payout ratio, R is lesser than KE, 100% payout ratio, and R is equal to KE, we can choose any of the dividend payout ratio from 0 to 100. So Walter model also look at profitable opportunities, whether to retain their earnings instead of getting dividends. The cost of retention is important here. So the formula for the Walters is equal to price of the share, that is market price of the share, which is equal to D. D stands for dividend per share as per the dividend payout ratio, plus R. R stands for rate of return on the firm's investment, or we can say percentage of retained earnings, divide by KE. KE stands for cost of equity capital or capitalization rate of equity. That should be multiplied with the bracket, that is E. E stands for earning per share minus D. D stands for dividend per share, means this stands for dividend payout ratio basically. Divide by KE. KE stands for capitalization rate. So I will study the formula again. P is equal to D plus R upon KE multiplied with E minus D divided by KE. Basically, you have to remember this formula for calculation of numerical questions. So assumptions of Walters model. The firm finances all investment through retained earnings, means we are using only internal source of finance. The firm's internal rate of return and its cost of capital are constant. That is the second point. And the third point is all earnings are either distributed as a dividend or reinvested internally immediately. Either we can distribute or we can retain into the firm. The firm has a very long life or infinite life. We have already studied that concept in the first semester, that is going concern concept, right? So the firm has a long life or infinite life. So some are the criticisms of this model. The Walters model does not consider all the factors affecting dividend policy and the share prices. Means we are not considering the all factors. We are just considering the two factors. One is called R and another is KE. The model assumes that investment opportunities of the firm are financed by retained earnings only and no external financing. So we are just focusing on the internal source of finance. We are not focusing on the external source of finance. Next is firm's internal rate of return does not always remain constant. In fact, R decreases as more and more investment is made. When we are investing more and more and more, then R will be decreasing. So that never be constant. Walters' model on dividend policy ignored the business risk of the firm, which has direct impact on the value of the firm. Thus, K cannot be assumed as constant, because when we are getting funds from the people, they will increase or decrease the rate as they preferred. So there is a one question based on the 3 points. R is greater than K, R is lesser than K, R is equal to K. We have already discussed in this slide, that is R is greater than KE. We are adopting zero payout ratio. How it will impact in the numerical we will discuss. R is lesser than KE, that we will discuss, that is 100% payout ratio, that we will discuss in the numerical question. R is equal to KE. Any policy between 0 to 100 can be adopted, means there is no impact on the market price. So we will discuss in the numerical question. In this numerical question, we have discussed the three cases. R is greater than KE, where there is a zero payout ratio. R is lesser than KE, where we are adopted 100% payout ratio. R is equal to KE, where we adopt any of the payout ratio. So there are three cases vertically given in the question. So if the EPS is 8%, rupees 8, sorry, rupees 8. So dividend payout ratio we have taken as 0, 25%, 50%, 75% and 100%. We have taken of 5 examples, right? So here, if we are talking about when R is 15% and KE is 12%. So I will discuss only two cases under this point, and all the other points can be calculated on the following formula which has been given, that is formula P is equal to D plus R upon KE multiplied with E minus D upon KE. So when dividend payout ratio is 0, that means dividend is rupees 0, and dividend payout ratio is 25%, that means dividend is rupees 2, 25% of 8 EPS, and 50% dividend payout ratio is equal to rupees 8 multiplied by 50%, which is equal to rupees 4. 75% of rupees 8, which is equal to rupees 6. 100% dividend payout ratio, which means we are distributing rupees 8 as a earning to the shareholders as a dividend. So rupees 8 should be distributed as dividend. So in the first case, I have marked in a yellow lines 1 first case, 2 as a second case. So I will just discuss the 2 points here. So you will calculate the another points by applying the following formula. So first case, when there is a R is 15% and KE is equal to 12% and dividend payout ratio is 0, EPS is equal to rupees 8. So here P is equal to rupees 0, that we know that a 0 as a dividend because there is a 0 payout ratio, plus 15% should be taken as R divided by 12% should be taken as KE. In a bracket we can write rupees 8 as a earning per share minus rupees 0 as a dividend. That should be whole should be divided by 12% as KE. So after calculation we know that price is equal to rupees 83 approx. So here we will calculate the price. Here dividend payout ratio is 0, which means 0 dividend. So we have already discussed the first case where I have colored in a red, that is 83. And the second case, in the second case I will take a second example. P is equal to D plus R upon KE, that should be multiplied with E minus D upon KE. So price is equal to rupees 2. Rupees 2 is basically dividend. We know that 25% is a dividend payout ratio. 25% of rupees 8 is equal to rupees 2 as a dividend payout ratio, plus 15% oblique divide by 12%, that should be multiplied with rupees 8 minus rupees 2 divide by 12%. So after getting the calculation done, so we know that the price is equal to 79 approx. So again we'll moving to the chart. We know that if we are paying if we are considering R is greater than KE, 15% is greater than 12%, so dividend payout ratio will be 0, because at the 0 there will be a highest market price. In the other case, when R is lesser than KE, so we'll consider the 100% payout ratio because the market price here is greater, that is rupees 67. If we are discussing the third case where R is equal to KE, that is 12% is equal to 12%, any of the dividend policy can be adopted between 0 to 100%. So all the prices are same, means there is no impact on the market price of the share. I think all should be understood to all. So this is the assignment question you have to do, and after solving you have to post on your classroom link. Thank you very much. If you have any query, then please give me a message, send me a message. Thank you.